July 16, 1945. At 5:29 in the morning, there was a big explosion in the desert of New Mexico. The earth shakes that can be felt from California all the way to Georgia. The light flashed across the sky. It was 100 times brighter than the sun, so that anybody see the flashlight with the naked eyes would be immediately blind. A college woman was driving on the highway has to pull over because she could no longer see anything. She didn't know what was going on. Neither the rest of the world knew what is going on. Mr. President, the explosion was the nuclear bomb. We now have the most powerful weapon on the earth. We can end the world at any time with this new weapon. Leslie Groves, the director of the Manhattan Project, reported to President Truman. Wait a minute, Mr. President and gentlemen. Just because we have the nuclear weapon, it doesn't mean it is right things to do to use the weapon. You know, the international treaty forbids any nation to use chemical weapon or biological weapon. Mr. President, let me explain to you. This was the voice of Julius Oppenheimer. He said that a single nuclear bomb can kill 20,000 men. This is worse than any chemical weapon or biological weapon. I urge you not to use this nuclear weapon in Japan or in any battlefield. Then Dr. Leo Szilard continues on. Mr. President, please do not use the weapon. We had the Manhattan Project simply because we don't want Germany to have this weapon first. But Germany surrendered on May 8, 1945. They do not have a nuclear weapon. So, what is the purpose for the Manhattan Project? In my opinion, we should abandon this project once for all. Besides, if we use the weapon, we will broadcast to the world, and a new race for making a nuclear weapon will begin after the war. So, Mr. President, please do not use the weapon. President Truman think a while, then turned his attention to General Marshall. George Marshall was the commander for the Japanese soil campaign at the time. General Marshall, would you please update us the invasion plan for the Japan? Yes, Mr. President. We have assembled 20 carriers, 300 battleships, 100,000 men at Okinawa. At any order from you, we will proceed the invasion. That's very good. Can you give us the casualty estimate? Oh, Mr. President, I'm afraid the casualty will be very, very high. You know, at Okinawa campaign, We thought it was an easy one, but we were wrong. Japanese fought at every inch of their land. We lost 8,000 men. So I'm afraid the Japanese campaign, the casualty will be very, very high. President thought a while, then said to the group, okay, why don't we give Japan an ultimatum? If Japanese accept the ultimatum, then the war is over. If not, then we may consider to use the weapon. 1945. Taiwan was still a colony of Japan. 1945. The Americans has turned from defensive to offensive in the Pacific battlefield. Since the beginning of 1945, the American bombers bombing Taiwan almost every day, typically from 8 o'clock in the morning to 11:30 at noon. Then they resumed the bombing from 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock. During the bombing campaign, the Taiwanese citizens, including my parents, they would hide in the shelters, and only during the bombing break they could get out the shelter and doing their daily routine. On July 26, 1945, after the bombing campaign, my parents came out of the shelter and found out there was no bomb, but a leaflet with the declaration of the ultimatum. The declaration was written in Japanese. It says that 我々は日本政府が全日本軍の即時無条件降伏を宣言し、これ以外の選択肢は迅速かつ完全なる壊滅があるのみである。The English translation is, we call upon the government of Japan to proclaim now the unconditional surrender of all Japanese armed forces and to provide proper and adequate assurance of their good faith in such action. The alternative for Japan is prompt and utter destruction. Now everybody is holding their breath, waiting for the response from the Japanese government. It finally arrived on August 1, 1945. The message was mokusatsu from the War Minister Anami. When the American government received this message, they assembled all the Japanese language experts, tried to understand what mokusatsu really means. Unfortunately, nobody understood. Then, on August 2nd, 1945, the news came to President Truman. Japanese Navy torpedoed United States carriers USS Indianapolis, completely sank the carrier. All 1,700 sailors, crews, all perished. President Truman said that, "Let us drop the bomb." 2 o'clock in the morning on August 6, 1945, Captain Morris Jefferson woke up Walt Dusenberry and Joseph Stiborek, as well as 2 other crews. They began to work. They loaded a special bomb named Big Boy onto a bomber, and they began to fly from Tinian Island in the Pacific Ocean to Japanese sky. The bomb we are carrying today is the most destructive weapon in human history, Morris said. All other missions would look like small potatoes compared to this mission. Captain, can you tell us what it is about this bomb? No, this is a top secret, but it will not limit your imagination. It is the chemist's nightmare? Not quite. How about the physicist's nightmare? That is close. After more than 6 hours of flight, Joseph said that, "I saw Hiroshima." Good. Put your eye goggles on. Get set. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Here we go. The uranium, the big boy, was dropped on Hiroshima around 8:30 in the morning of August 6, 1945. People were burned to char like a barbecued. Passengers stood in the subway with hands holding on the handle. They looked like they were alive, but they were all dead. A woman was holding my hand. Her hands, legs, and upper parts of the body were completely burned. An yellowish liquid was oozing out from her eyes. She called me Oni-san. I watched more closely and realized that she is my little sister, Immortal. The rivers in the Hiroshima are also hells. People of severe burn came to the river. People of thirsty came to the river, but very soon they died and floated on the river. My son asked me what was going on in Hiroshima. I really did not want to tell him about it. I could not imagine that such a human tragedy could happen, but I had to tell him about it. The casualty of Hiroshima atomic bomb was 132,000 people, 7 times more severe than what Oppenheimer had predicted. No survival within the radius of 3 miles of the bomb. This is indeed the weapon of mass destruction. 3 days later, on August 9, 1945, the American drops the second bomb on Nagasaki. On the same day, the Russians declare war on Japan and march her troops into Manchuria. Japan surrendered on September 2, 1945. The bloody war finally ended on September 2, 1945. While the Allies are celebrating the end of the bloody war, in the background there was a new race. In 1949, Soviet Union tests the first nuclear weapon. 4 years later, 1952, that was Great Britain. 8 years later, 1960, France tests her first nuclear weapon. 4 years later, 1964, that was People's Republic of China. 1974, India has the first nuclear weapon. 6 years later, her rival, Pakistan, also has a nuclear weapon. Today, every nation knows how to make a nuclear weapon, including Iran and North Korea. Then we have to ask ourselves, we end the bloody war with this bloody weapon. Is the world become a better place or safer place? Mr. President, I urge you not to use the weapon. If we use the weapon, we will broadcast to the world that nuclear weapon can be made, and every nation will begin to build this bloody weapon. Mr. President, please do not use the weapon. This is the weapon of mass destruction. Please do not use the weapon.